From the outside, the brown duplex on Adebayo Street looked ordinary. The paint was a little faded, the gate squeaked when pushed, and the neighbors often complained about the constant hum of the generator. Still, it was home to the Adeyemi family. Inside, however, the walls told a different story. Amaka Adeyemi, 25, stood by the kitchen sink rinsing plates. She had just returned from work at a small PR firm in Ikeja, her tailored blouse still clinging to her skin in the evening heat. From the living room, her father's booming voice carried over the sound of the TV news. "Where is your brother?" Always gallivanting up and down like he owns the world. Amaka flinched slightly, even though she was used to it. Her father's anger was like background noise in the house, loud, sharp but predictable. Her mother's softer voice followed, strained but measured. "He's at the university, Femi. He said he had a group project." The clatter of a glass against the table made Amaka's stomach knot. She knew what was next, her father's suspicion. The endless questions, the accusations. She sighed and stacked the plates on the rack. In moments like this, she wished she lived alone. But something, duty, fear, love, or maybe all three, kept her rooted in that house. As she carried a tray of food into the sitting room, she caught sight of the family portrait hanging on the wall. Smiling faces, perfect poses, a picture that lied better than words ever could. Her father glanced at her sharply. "Amaka, your brother will bring shame to this house one day. Mark my words. None of you children listen." She lowered her eyes and set the tray down quietly. But as she walked back to the kitchen, her ears caught a soft creak, like a whisper from the old corridor that led to the back rooms. For a moment, she paused, her heart quickening. It was silly, she told herself. Just the old house settling. But deep inside, she felt it. The house had more to say. And one day, its walls would speak. The next morning, Amaka left the house early, escaping the heaviness that seemed to hang in every room. She caught a Danfo bus to Ikeja, squeezed between a woman balancing a basket of vegetables and a man shouting into his phone about a business deal. Work at the PR firm was busy but mechanical. Press releases, client calls, endless meetings about campaigns no one truly believed in. Amaka moved through it all with practiced calm, but inside, she felt restless. Something gnawed at her, a sense that life was waiting for her elsewhere, outside the safe but suffocating walls of her home. By evening, when she returned, the house was unusually quiet. Her younger brother, Dopo, was sprawled on the sofa, scrolling through his phone. His eyes darted up guiltily when she entered. "You're home early," she said, raising an eyebrow. "Lecture was cancelled," he muttered, too quickly. Before Amaka could respond, their father's voice thundered from his study. "Dopo, come here this minute." The boy's face drained of color. He shoved his phone into his pocket and shuffled toward the study. Amaka's heart sank. She knew what was coming. Minutes later, the argument began. Accusations about missing money. Shouts about irresponsibility. Dopo's weak protests drowned under their father's booming rage. Amaka sat frozen on the sofa, staring at the family portrait again. The smiling faces mocked her, perfect and false. She remembered how long her mother had made them sit for that photo, adjusting collars, forcing smiles, begging her father to look pleasant for once. Now, as the shouting grew louder behind the closed door, this family had been breaking for years, and no portrait could hide it. Later that night, long after the house went quiet, she heard it again, that same faint creak in the corridor. Amaka felt the weight of truth pressing against her chest, followed by a soft, almost human sigh. Her skin prickled. She wasn't imagining it this time. The walls were listening, and they were waiting to speak. Saturday mornings in the Adeyemi household were usually the same. Her mother humming softly as she cleaned, her father reading the newspaper with a mug of tea, and Dopo disappearing for hours with excuses of group study. But this Saturday felt different. The house was still, as though holding its breath. Amaka decided to help with the cleaning, partly to escape her own thoughts. She went to the back corridor where old boxes were stacked, gathering dust. As she moved one aside, a brown envelope slid out and landed at her feet. Curious, she picked it up. The seal was torn, the paper yellowed with age. Inside was a folded letter, the handwriting shaky but clear. She hesitated, then opened it. To my daughter, Amaka. If you are reading this, then the truth I could not speak is finally in your hands. Our family is not as it seems. Your father's anger is not only a burden of temper, but a shadow from the past. The day will come when you must know. The rest of the page was smudged, water-stained, the ink bleeding into unreadable blotches. Amaka's hands trembled. The letter was signed, simply, Mama Bisi. She frowned. Mama Bisi? That wasn't her mother. She had never heard the name before. Her heart thudded as she slipped the letter back into the envelope. 1,000 questions clawed at her. Who was Mama Bisi? Why had her words been hidden in their house? What truth had she been too afraid to say aloud? That night, Amaka couldn't sleep. Every creak of the old corridor seemed louder. Every shadow in the corners felt heavier. She remembered the sigh she had heard days earlier, almost human, almost alive. For the first time, she wasn't just imagining it. The walls were not only listening, they were keeping secrets. And now, one of them had slipped into her hands. The following week, Amaka moved through the house with a new awareness. Every creak, every whisper of wind against the windows, felt like it carried a message. She started small, asking her mother innocuous questions about old relatives, casually steering conversations toward the past. But her mother always deflected, smiling tightly, her hands trembling slightly as she folded clothes or stirred soup. One afternoon, Amaka found herself in the attic, a place she rarely visited. Dust hung thick in the air, and boxes of old clothes, photo albums, and documents loomed like silent sentinels. She opened a small wooden chest and discovered a bundle of letters, tied neatly with a faded ribbon. Most were addressed to someone named Bisi Adeyemi, signed with love and worrying. One of them was a photograph tucked inside her, younger version of her mother with a woman who looked strikingly like her, both smiling with unguarded joy. Her pulse quickened. Could Mama Bisi be her mother, or someone else? Amaka took the letters to her room and began reading. Fragmented stories emerged, debts, arguments, a child sent away, and a man whose name never appeared in the letters. The details were vague, but the emotions were all of fear, regret, and secrecy. By evening, Amaka confronted her mother gently. Mama, who is Mama Bisi? I found letters, and a photo. Her mother stiffened, the warmth in her eyes dimming. Amaka, some things in life are meant to stay buried. I wanted to tell you when the time was right, but perhaps the time has come. For the first time, Amaka saw hesitation, shame, and a pain that went deeper than any scolding or argument she had ever witnessed. The walls of their house, once silent witnesses, seemed almost alive now. Every crack, every shadow, whispered that the past had been waiting patiently for her to notice. And Amaka realized that uncovering the truth would not only change her understanding of her family, but might also change her place within it forever. Dinner that night was unusually tense. The clatter of spoons and plates was the only sound, until her father cleared his throat and fixed Amaka with his piercing eyes. I hear you've been asking questions, he said. His tone was calm, the kind of calm that came before thunder. Amaka's hand froze on her spoon. She glanced at her mother, who lowered her gaze, her face pale. Yes, Daddy, Amaka said carefully. I found some letters. About someone called Mama Bisi. I just want to understand. Her father's fist slammed the table, rattling the plates. You will not speak that name in this house. The silence that followed was suffocating. Dopo pushed his chair back nervously, muttering an excuse to leave. Their mother whispered, "Femi, please." But he cut her off with a glare. Amaka's chest burned. "But Daddy, why? Who is she? What are you all hiding from me?" Her father stood abruptly, his towering frame casting a shadow across the dining room. "Some things are not meant for your ears. That woman, she brought disgrace to this family. And if you know what is good for you, Amaka, you will leave it alone." He stormed off, the echo of his footsteps heavy against the tiled floor. Amaka sat trembling, her spoon untouched. She turned to her mother. "Mama, tell me the truth, please." Tears filled her mother's eyes, spilling onto her lap. "I wanted to protect you, my daughter. But maybe the walls are speaking because the time for silence is over." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Mama Bisi is closer to you than you think. She is not just part of this family's past. She is part of your blood." Amaka's breath caught. Her heart pounded in her ears. "What do you mean?" she asked, voice barely audible. Her mother swallowed hard, unable to meet her gaze. "Mama Bisi is your real mother." Amaka lay awake long after the house had gone silent. Her mother's words replayed in her mind like a haunting chorus. "Mama Bisi is your real mother." The thought clawed at her chest. All her life, she had believed she belonged fully to the Ademis. Now, the very ground beneath her felt unsteady. The next morning, she found her mother sitting on the veranda, eyes swollen from tears. Amaka sat beside her, the silence heavy between them. "Mama," she whispered, "tell me everything. I deserve to know." Her mother's lips trembled. "Your father forbade me to ever speak of it, but the truth has eaten me alive for years." She paused, steadying her breath. "Bisi was my elder sister. She gave birth to you when she was very young, unmarried, and alone. Our family cast her out, but I couldn't leave her child to suffer. When she disappeared, I raised you as my own." Amaka's vision blurred with tears. "So all this time, my real mother." Her mother nodded. "Gone, no one knows where. Some say she fled abroad, others that she died in shame." The words hung in the air, sharp and heavy. Later that day, Amaka confronted her father in the study. He sat behind his desk, papers scattered, his face hard as stone. "Why did you lie to me?" she demanded, voice trembling. "Why keep me in the dark?" His jaw tightened. "Because truth destroys. That woman Bisi was a stain on this family. I gave you a name, a home, a future. Is that not enough?" "It's not about enough," Amaka cried. "It's about who I am. You can't erase blood. Daddy, you can't silence walls forever." His eyes blazed with fury, but beneath it she caught something else, fear. For the first time, she realized his anger was not strength but a shield, guarding wounds he refused to expose. As she stormed out of the room, she felt it again, the corridor creaking, the sigh in the walls. Only now, it didn't feel like imagination. It felt like a truth pressing to be freed. And Amaka knew one thing with certainty. She would not rest until she uncovered the whole story of Mama Bisi, no matter what it cost. Amaka's search for answers led her beyond the house on Adeyemi Street. She visited an old family friend, Mama Adeyemi, who had known her parents since their youth. The elderly woman hesitated at first, wringing her hands. But when Amaka pressed, she sighed deeply. "My child, your mother's sister, Bisi, was not a disgrace as your father claims. She was bright, full of life, but she loved the wrong man. He promised her the world, but when she became pregnant with you, he abandoned her. The family shunned her out of shame. Only your mother stood by her." Amaka's throat tightened. "So, what happened to her?" Mama Adeyemi's eyes glistened. "The last I heard, Bisi left Lagos, broken. Some say she went to Port Harcourt, some say she never survived the weight of rejection. But one thing is certain, she loved you fiercely. She wanted better for you, even if it meant giving you up." Tears streamed down Amaka's face. The walls of her childhood home hadn't lied. They had only kept the silence her father demanded, silence that had now broken. That night, Amaka returned home and faced her parents. Her father sat stiffly, anger simmering just beneath the surface. Her mother's hands twisted nervously in her lap. Amaka's voice was steady. I know the truth now. Mama Bisi was my mother, and she was not a disgrace. The disgrace was the silence, the lies. Her father's face darkened, but his words faltered. For once, the booming certainty in his voice was gone. He looked smaller, older, as though the weight of decades of secrets had finally bent his shoulders. Her mother wept openly, reaching for her hand. Amaka, forgive us. We thought we were protecting you. Amaka nodded slowly. I forgive you, Mama, but I will not live in silence anymore. I am her daughter. I am your daughter, and I will carry both truths with me. For the first time, the house felt lighter, as though the walls themselves had exhaled, freed from years of unspoken words. Amaka knew the journey ahead would not be easy. There were still questions unanswered, wounds unhealed. But one thing was certain, the walls had finally spoken, and she had finally found her voice.